What is up? What is up, Wild Bunch? Welcome to day 892 of the Camp Fats Daily Vlog. You are watching the Camp Fats Daily. Thanks for watching, guys. We are live and direct. Hope everybody's doing amazing out there. Came across the pretty crazy article today. My wife actually led me in this direction. She was telling me a couple of things people said today right before they died. And I thought it was a really creepy, crazy subject. And that got me looking around on the internet for things people said before they died. And it kind of leads you back to the question, what happens after you die? Do you go to heaven? Do you go to hell? Do you do nothing? Or did you just go back to nothingness? Are you absorbed into the energy of the earth or the cosmos? Is it reincarnation? I mean, what happens when we die? None of us really know, right? I've heard a million theories. None of us really know. So I thought it was interesting. I'll tell you some of these things people have said when they died, and you can draw your own conclusions. Pretty wild, pretty eye-opening. And I'll tell you a couple things I know personally as we go along here. I'll tell you stories, a couple little stories, things I know personally that have happened, and I'll tell you guys about those. But anyways, sit back, buckle up. This is probably going to be a little on the creepy side. So if you don't like creepy stuff, and it's going to keep you from being able to sleep at night, you might not want to hang around for this one, man. You might want to wait till the morning to watch this one. So it is about 11:52 p.m. So we are most definitely getting into some creepy stuff right here tonight on the Camp Fats Daily. But that being said, thanks for hanging out with me, guys, and let's go ahead and get into it. So this is 29 things that people said right before they died. All right, number one, they have no eyes. My grandfather on his deathbed said they have no eyes. Still gives me chills. That's weird. I don't even know what that means. They have no eyes. 2, fire, fire. There's fire everywhere. I had an old lady flag me down in the hallway a few days before she died. And with her emaciated face and bulging eyes, she said, "You know where I'm going?" I asked her what she meant, and she repeated herself, "You know where I'm going when I die?" And it ain't up. Oh, so she said, "You know where I'm going." I asked her what she meant, and she repeated herself, "You know where I'm going when I die," and it ain't up. I was taken aback and asked her if she wanted to talk with the priest we have on staff. She shook her head and said, "It's too late for that." A few days later, she was eating her supper and started screaming. She yelled, "Fire, fire, there's fire everywhere." She died a few hours later, quite suddenly. I didn't sleep that night, and I really hope her soul found some rest. Holy cow, man. I am not going to sleep tonight. All right, guys, just so you know, I haven't read these. So I found some of these articles today, and I decided to save them to read them with you guys. So I have not read these. These are as creepy to me as they are to you. 3, the body is in the woods next to the oak tree. Surgeon here. Not sure if this is creepy, but a man on his deathbed kept repeating, "The body is in the woods next to the oak tree," over and over until he passed away. The police were notified, and they did search some woods behind the man's house, but never found anything. It's weird, man. Very, very weird. 4, the next time you wash me, I will be dead. I once worked as a nurse, and I had a gentleman who didn't want a wash one morning and said to me, "The next time you wash me, I will be dead." I thought he was just being morbid like the old guys are, and then he asked to his wife and got quite agitated. I went to continue with the other patients, and I got a call to help with someone who died. Turns out he was right. Wow. 5, am I dead? I'm in hell. I'm a lab person, and I had to go to the ER to draw blood from a code stroke patient that just came in. BC, the EMTs couldn't get it. He means because the EMTs couldn't get it. I got there, it was just me and him before he went to CT, and he looked at me and said, "Am I dead? I'm in hell." He died a couple hours later. Poor old man. Wow. I see a bright light. Horses, no eyes. No, no, no. ER physician here, and heard many last words from patients, but the creepiest one has to be of a man who was on his last breath as he succumbed to renal failure. He said, "I see a bright light. Horses, no. Eyes, no, no, no," as he loudly yelled. At this point, he was crashing when he suddenly woke up, looked up with his last breath, and he said, "I understand." And he died. We know in the medical field that these situations are provoked by a cascade of neurotransmitters and disarray due to tissue and organ failure, but I sometimes have my doubts, and perhaps we are seeing more than we are led to believe. Man, that is wild. That is wild. Number 7. A nice old lady who took a nice old lady who told my CNA she wanted to wear all white. When asked why, she said, "The man in black is here." She looked in the corner of the room. The CNA looked, but there was no one there. That's when I came into the room. We asked her to describe what she was seeing, and she said, "He's in all black and he's got a top hat on." Then she whispered, "And his eyes are red." While her eyes moved across the room to directly behind the CNA, like she was watching him move closer to us. She died later that night, but it was unexpected. The room creeped me out for a long time after that. Wow, it's weird. Guys, if you don't know what a CNA is, that's a certified nursing assistant. That's what that means. So, 8. I was in the army in Pakistan for humanitarian support after an earthquake. There was a very serious school bus crash when a road gave way and a dozen kids were killed. The first kid that we took off the ambulance and put on the stretcher to carry into our triage tent said, more like screamed, something in Urdu. When we got there, the doc asked the translators what he said. It was, "The spiders are eating Papa." Mm, mm, mm. Ugh. We all just looked at each other for a second and then proceeded with the triage. 9. Why is this happening? I work in a cardiac ICU. We had a patient who had a pulmonary artery rupture, a rare but known complication of a Swan-Ganz catheter. One minute he was joking around with us, and the next bright red blood was spewing out of his mouth. His last words before he died were, "Why is this happening to me?" It still haunts me years later. Yeah, man, that's crazy. That would definitely bug me too. No doubt about it. What's up, Randy? How you doing, man? We're getting into some creepy stuff here tonight, buddy. 10. I'm a nurse and was previously working at an assisted living community on the dementia Alzheimer's unit. My very favorite patient had been declining pretty steadily, so I was checking on him very frequently. We would have long chats and joke around with each other, but in the last 2 weeks of his life, he stopped talking completely and didn't really acknowledge conversation directed at him at all. I finished my medication rounds for the evening and went to see him before I left. I told him I was leaving for the night and that I'd see him the following day, and he looked me in the eyes and smiled so genuinely and said, "You look like an angel." I thought it was so sweet because he had not seemed lucid in weeks. He died the next morning. It really messed with me. Wow. 11. Get home safe, little one. It wasn't what he said. He said the same thing to me anytime I had him as a patient for the evening. It was how he said it. He gave me this look and paused like he knew. The DNRs in my experience, always know when it's time. It's creepy. Just in case you guys don't know what DNR means, that stands for do not resuscitate. It's basically they're in the hospital and there's something wrong with them. If they go into a code or anything like that, they're not going to do anything to bring them back to life. They're not going to resuscitate them, do anything that would be like life-saving measures. They're just going to try to make them comfortable. That's what the DNR stands for. So this lady's basically saying the way he said, get home safe, little one, it was like he said it in a different kind of way. So it's like he almost knew or something. 12. Ugh. I was a hospice nurse for many years. Guys, if you don't know what that is, hospice nurses, nurses who take care of people who are dying. They are dying. It's an accepted thing. Their main job is just to make them comfortable. I was a hospice nurse for many years. Super gratifying job for a nurse, surprisingly. As a regular nurse, you are rarely offered thanks. Hospice nursing is an island unto itself, mostly peaceful, lots of times sad, often a blessing. This is sad, but also creepy, and I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it. Had a 20-year-old kid, gang member, who was dying of a primary liver cancer. Super unusual, aggressive, and terminal. He was angry at the universe. His family was there to comfort him, but he literally spit on their faces. Every ounce of energy he had left was angry and mean and ugly. His mom would beg him to lighten up and accept Jesus into his heart. He would swing at her and tell her to F herself. The family remained bedside in hopes he would chill out at the end. His last days, hours, moments, he was angry. The family called me into the room and told me that they thought he was going. He wasn't responding. Cheyenne Stokes breaths. Eyes glossy, skin cold, the end was imminent. His lovely mother, in her dearest attempt, whispered to him to go towards the light to her Jesus. With his dying breath, he opened his eyes, looked at her, and said, F your Jesus. A second or two later, he slowly turned his head to the left and got the most horrific look on his face, as if he was looking at something we couldn't see, and horrified, like in a bad movie. His face contorted, and he screamed with his last breath, eyes wide, oh shit, oh no, then made a guttural noise and promptly fell back into the bed and died. Every member of the family was shaking and too frightened to speak, and I left the room and took 2 days off. I don't care if I never find out what he saw. Oh my goodness. Man. Jeez. Holy crap, man. All right. 13. My grandma died in 1989. My grandfather died around 1965. She never remarried, never dated, but she did have a great life. When she was dying, she yelled, Bob, Bob, here I come. Oh, honey, I've missed you so much. We always joked that we were glad she didn't yell, Bob, who the hell is that? Yeah, that's interesting, man, because it's like, his grandfather died in 1965. His grandma didn't die until 1989. And when she died, she said, Bob, Bob, here I come. Oh, honey, I miss you so much. That's interesting because, you know, my old man died in 2016. And like 2 weeks later, my aunt died. She died of liver failure. And like maybe the night before she died, my mom was with her and she was sleeping, and she woke up and she told my mom that my father had came to her and sang her a song, so I thought that was really interesting. And my mom told me that. And I think it was like the next day she died. So that was pretty wild. And then I'll tell you another story that has to do with stuff like that. My grandpa died just a few months back here, not very long ago. And he told my sister that my dad came to visit him like very shortly before he died. He came to visit him. So I thought that was really cool, man. I thought that was really interesting. You know, man, if I get I think I like the idea, man, of if you're dying, like if someone you love comes to get you, you know what I mean? They come to get you and take you on. That's cool, man. That's a cool idea. That's a nice thought. So, anyways, 14. My mom was watching over my great grandfather in the hospital. He'd been unresponsive for a day or so when suddenly he said, "It's about damn time you got here. I've been waiting." And then he died. I gotta read that. My mom was watching over my great grandfather in the hospital, so that was her grandfather. He'd been unresponsive for a day or so when suddenly he said, "It's about damn time you got here. I've been waiting." I mean, who do you think he saw? Who do you think he saw? Do you think he saw somebody else? Some like his wife or something? That's pretty wild. 15. DNR patient, that's do not resuscitate, was on comfort care, was on a high dose of morphine and hallucinating. She would alternate between grasping for things not there and trying to climb out of bed. She was too unsteady to walk, so my job was to sit in the room and make sure she was safe. She tried to get up, and I went to ask her what she needed. She grabbed my arm and pulled me down towards her face and said very, very angrily, "Kill me." That one fucked with me for a while. Man, I didn't mean to cuss. I'm just reading, guys. I didn't mean to cuss. Sorry about that. She said, "Kill me." That one effed with me for a while. So the guy said that one effed with him for a while, but all the lady said was "kill me." That's what she said. She said, "Kill me." Holy cow, man. That would be insane if that happened to me. 16. The old gray mare ain't what she used to be. Checked in on a patient before the end of my shift, and she was in pretty good spirits. Had been joking with me the whole time. Her condition was tenuous, but she had been positive throughout. I asked how she was doing, and she replied by singing, "The old gray mare ain't what she used to be," and wished me a good night. I came in the next morning and she had coded and died overnight. Wow, that's pretty funny. Funny thing to say. The old gray mare ain't what she used to be. Reminds me of that. Reminds me of that Family Guy episode where the dad his wife asked him how he's doing, and he says, "Seen better days, Lewis. Seen better days." 17. I've commented this somewhere before, but it's stayed with me. I'm an RN. Guys, that's a registered nurse, if you don't know what that is. I'm an RN, and while I was a student, I was caring for a lady who had an end-stage renal failure, had a DNAR, and was shutting down. I'm not sure what DNAR stands for, guys. We were having a little chat. Well, I was chatting anyway. I was chatting away while helping her put on some lotion when she stopped, looked over my shoulder, and said, Bill's here. Bill's here, love. I've got to go," and swiftly stopped breathing. Read her old notes, and Bill was her deceased husband. See, man, that's crazy. That's exactly what I have seen, like personally, things that have happened in my family and stuff. There's another instance right there where someone they loved or they knew came to get them. That's pretty wild, man. 18. I worked a bank shift in A&E a few months ago. A young man was in horrible car crash. His face was covered in blood and had a compound fracture of his clavicle, but conscious. He was screaming, "Don't tell me she's dead. Where is she?" Before succumbing to his injuries an hour later, his girlfriend had died instantly in the crash. Wow. That's sad, man. That's sad. 19. I'm a hospital chaplain. Guys, that's kind of like a priest. They hang out in the hospital though. They're there for people who need to talk to somebody who's in the hospital. Um, I'm a hospital chaplain. When I was a CPE intern, a greenhorn, I went to see a patient in the ICU who had 10 to 12 oranges on her table. We talked about oranges for about 20 minutes, and then she said, "Something's going to happen." I went to check on her the next day, and the nurse mentioned that she passed the previous night. I asked if anyone else talked with her, and she said no. So the last conversation she had was about oranges with me. I kind of wish we talked about something else. However, the nurse said that was a worthy conversation that the patient wanted to talk about. It made me feel better. It's weird, man. It's weird. It's weird what last conversations are sometimes, and what people think are worthwhile. I think we got this perception like it's all going to be like in the movies and stuff, but it's just not. 20. This afternoon, my wife and I were just remembering an amazing friend of mine, Kevin, who died a little more than 18 years ago. We did the math and realized that the son he left behind is now the same age that Kevin was when he passed, which gave me pause to say the least. Kevin died from a recurrence of the same type of cancer that had first showed up in him while he was still in his teens. The same cancer, seriously, F cancer, had also taken his father. Also, so he said the same cancer, and then in parentheses he said, seriously, F cancer. But he says basically the same cancer had also taken his father at the age of 34 when Kev was just about the same age as this kid. He was a warm, funny, kind, no bullcrap guy who had zero capacity for flowery talk or mysticism, He was a real cash and carry kind of dude. So you'll understand why his last conversation with me has comforted me for nearly 2 decades now. I went to visit him at the hospital on what ended up being the final day of his life. And when he and I were finally alone, he leaned over to me and said, "Stan, there have been 3 angels in my room on and off since just before sunrise." I asked him if he thought it was the morphine, which normally he would have been the first to suggest, LOL. And he said, "No, I'm not effing with you, buddy. I'm not talking about feeling angels or anything. There are actual angels who keep coming into my room." I asked him if they were frightening, and he replied, "No, they're actually making me calm the F down a little bit." He passed later that evening. I have always had and still have doubts about there being anything after this life. And of course, the pragmatic part of my brain recognizes that it certainly could have been the medications he was taking or some further metastasis to his brain, right? But if I'm being honest about what my gut tells me or my heart, there were angels in my friend's room. Wow. That's bizarre, man. That's awesome. That's crazy. 21. My grandfather's brother. He died exactly 6 hours after my grandfather. And just minutes before he died, he said, "I'm going to see you again, brother." He didn't know at the time that my granddad, his brother, had died. The family were going to tell him the next morning because he was having a bad day. It's wild. 22. I'm working on my mother's eulogy. For tomorrow's wake. I'm going to go into details for anyone that is smoking because I think it's something you should reconsider. Oh man, this should be really good. Details. My mom was diagnosed with terminal lung and pancreatic cancer. A mass had developed around her vocal cords and made it hard for her to speak. She smoked all of her life, and it finally caught up with her. It attacked her quick. From the time she was diagnosed to the time she passed away, it was less than 2 weeks. First, she lost her voice. Then she had difficulty breathing, became weak. She couldn't walk too far. Then she could only walk a little, then nothing at all. She had trouble eating. The night she died, I let her smoke her cigarette. Doctor said it didn't matter anymore. And my sister and I took mom into her bed, and I knew as did my sister. It was the last time we spent a few hours with her holding her, and I got up, lost it a bit, and my mom said, "Don't be sad," loudly with all her might. Don't be sad. I was fortunate to be with my mother at that time. She was due to have hospice that Monday, but she did not make it. Lung cancer kills quickly. I hope none of you have to deal with that. Consider it the next cigarette. It's just a matter of time. Well, enough preaching. Said, don't be sad. 23. Are you going to bury me? Not a medical professional, but my dad was dying at home and had been pretty out of it for a few days. A few times he was conscious, he would talk about all the people in his room and that they were climbing the walls, staring at him from under the bed. Generally crazy stuff. The last thing he said before the end was to my sister, "Are you going to bury me today?" Totally effed all of us up. He died the next day. Wow. 24. I have faced death many times before. The guy was gobbling down his breakfast and was refusing to have his blood glucose checked. And we knew that he would need insulin because of his history. I expressed my concern, and he told me, "I have faced death many times before. He's nearly blind, missing a few digits. You get the picture." I came back 30 minutes later to check on him. He was unconscious and turning nearly blue. We coded him and recovered him in the ICU, basically brain dead. They pulled the plug on him a week later. Turned out he had choked on a piece of egg from the breakfast he was eating. All right. Wow. That's weird. The devil has been in my room all night, but don't worry, God is with you. This man had like the worst death ever, too. He had a horrendous seizure and died with his eyes wide open, had a horrible grimace on his face. He had also been yelling all night about the devil and saying over and over, "Get out of here. This building's going to blow." Ooh, creepy, man. Creepy stuff. 26. I had a resident at end of life on comfort care. I went in to say goodbye, and she opened her eyes, looked right at me, and said, "Help, they're torturing me." It was awful. She was drugged to hell and gone, but obviously still feeling pain. Huh. Wow. 27. I'm a paramedic. An elderly woman grabbed my arm, asked me to tell the man with no head to get off her dresser. She coded immediately after from NSR to asystole, like someone snapped their fingers. Guys, when they say NSR, what that means is normal sinus rhythm. That's basically what your heart rate looks like when everything's cool and nothing's wrong. It's normal sinus rhythm. And then asystole is basically when you're flatlining and there's nothing. So she coded immediately. She went from NSR to asystole, like someone snapped their fingers. The second one was a 9-year-old struck by a vehicle. He said, "I see the line. Tell mom I'll be back." His eyes rolled back in his head and he went into VTAC. We worked him all the way to the hospital and for another 40 minutes in the trauma bay before he passed. So, guys, when they say VTAC, they're talking about you got the normal sinus rhythm, where you ever see on TV, you'll see like the little line of be like beep, 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 and then VTAC is basically where you got nothing but the beep, 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 just like a bunch of like V's, you know. It's bad news. Your heart can't maintain that rhythm for very long. It's a really nasty rhythm. And I'm talking like, when I say you can't maintain VTAC, I'm talking about like seconds. You got like seconds to maintain that heart rhythm. It's a bad one. I don't know what he meant by that, man. I see the line. I don't know what it means. It's sad though, man. I'll tell you something. I really don't like hearing about little kids dying and stuff. That's really, I don't know. This is a bummer to me, man. 28. My grandmother, when dying, told my mom, her daughter, "No, I do want to go. I don't want to go yet, and kept asking my mom, why are they here? She realized she was making the transition. Hmm. Wow. 29. When my grandmother was dying, someone had to me with her all day. A little typo there. When my grandmother was dying, someone. Oh, okay, I got it. Instead of me, it's supposed to be B. When my grandmother was dying, someone had to be with her all day. One night, my cousin volunteered to sit with her and was just talking with a half lucid woman. The house she lives in was creepy. The lights from the family room didn't reach the stairs or the hallway, so the light you had was it. Around 1 a.m., my grandmother starts making faces at the stairs when my cousin asks, what's wrong, Grandma? When my cousin asks what's wrong, Grandma responds, I just wish that man on the stairs would quit staring at us. Later on into the night, my cousin mentions how more family is arriving the next day, and Grandma says, well, it doesn't matter. Tomorrow I'll be dead, and so will you. My cousin didn't volunteer to sit with Grandma after that night. Holy cow, man. I guess I wouldn't have either, man. That's fair enough, I would say. I don't think I would sit with her after that night either. That's a little too creepy. Anyways, guys, honestly, this has been kind of a rough one. Listening to all that stuff reading all that stuff was kind of freaky, to be honest, especially this late at night. It's about it's getting on at 12:30 at night here. So I think I picked a bad thing to talk about, but that's okay. Um, Me personally, guys, I know I had several people in my family die in a pretty fast succession, and there were several stories around them dying. Uh, I tell you what, everybody believes something different. I tend to believe in God. My family tends to be Christian. So to me, I just try to live a good life, be kind to others, do what I can to help other people, try not to be too big of a jerk. Um, and The idea of a loved one coming to get me when I pass away is a comforting thought. The idea of demons or creatures or fiery lakes and stuff surrounding me when I die is terrifying to me, man. I don't want anything to do with that. um it seems like we live in a time where more and more people don't really believe anything, or they don't really know what to believe. And I can totally understand that. I mean, I feel that too. We live in this time of great, great uncertainty, especially when it comes to religion and spirituality. And, I would be lying if I said I had all the answers, because I don't. And I would be lying if I said I was some kind of perfect Christian, because I'm not. But I will say, I don't really know why you wouldn't want to believe in a place like heaven, where you could be reunited with the people you love who had passed away. Um, but I guess, belief's not really like that. It's not really about necessarily what you want to believe, I guess. Maybe it's about just what you believe. It's not that you want to believe it or not believe it. Maybe it's just sometimes you don't believe it. I mean, guys, I'd be lying to you if I told you that my faith in God and everything wasn't shaken a little bit when my dad died. It was, I'm still upset about it. I'm still angry about it. But it is what it is, man. I think when people you love die, only time heals it. And I don't know that if it necessarily ever really gets healed. It's more just like you learn to live with it, maybe. But I don't know. I guess time will tell. So, anyways, I think that um, all this stuff is interesting. The things people say. Some of those things that people said sounded kind of crazy, but some of those things people said sounded terrifying to me. Just absolutely wild. And I don't know what to make of any of that stuff. except, man, I just want to get right with God and be cool with everybody. Because some of those last words sounded fairly cool, fairly pleasant, and a lot of them sounded pretty downright horrifying. So, anyways, guys, that's it for day 82. I'll be back tomorrow with another daily vlog. I hope you guys are doing amazing. Hope this vlog finds you all well. Be safe. Take care of each other out there, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.